Hello everyone. So in this video what we'll do is we'll render the input values that we give to this form. After submitting this, the values will be rendered onto the browser screen. So till now what we have achieved was this. If we give this player a name and a score, and if we hit add new player button, it would reflect the data. It will pass the data and it will reflect it on the console screen, right? So as Marty as 99, the player name and player score was passed as an object, and this object was displayed on the console. So in this video what we'll do is we'll not display the data on the console, but rather what we'll do is as like a real application, we'll just enter the data here and it will be shown. It will be rendered on the browser screen. Okay, to achieve this we'll have to use the concept of props again. So props, as we have studied, we have discussed this props method, right? So it is a method to pass the data amongst components. Okay, so we'll use props, but this time props will be used in a very different way, not as usual as the way I have shown you in the example. That example used props in a different way because we had passed the data from a parent to a child. In my previous examples, if you have watched my videos, you would have noticed that I had passed the data from a parent, which was app.js. In our example, we have considered app.js as the parent component, and all other components that are inside this components folder, subfolder. So these were the child components, and this app.js was considered as the parent component. So we were passing from a parent to the child components in our earlier props examples. But this time, to achieve this thing, this whole thing that I just told you, what we'll do is we'll pass the data using props, the same as props, but from a child component. For this case, for this example, from playerform.js, this which is a child component, to a parent component, which is app.js. So you can think it as a reverse mechanism. Okay, so for that we'll write here props in the child component file, and with the help of props we will call a function. Let's say we'll call a function. We'll call the function using props, and let's say let's give the name of the function player function data, and let's just pass the data. What data will pass? We'll pass this particular player data, where the new data of our new player is stored, right? We have the p name and the p score. See this p name and the p score from here, right? P name, p score. We are passing this from the form. That means this form, whatever values we give, okay, whatever values we give, this will be passed to this function as player data, right? Player data. And where we are passing this data? To this function. Where this function is? This function is inside the parent component. Okay, currently this is not here, but we'll create a function, okay, where this data will be passed as a parameter. Okay, so for that let's just do let's just code okay, let's just yeah, for that what we'll do is this player function data, this will be used in the attribute section. This player function data, okay, and this will call indirectly, this will call this function, which let's name this function as player function. Okay, so just understand the flow first. Okay, this is very crucial. We have this props in our child component playerform.js, and with the help of these props we are calling a function inside our parent component app.js, and we are passing the new player data as player data to this function, and this function is actually initiated from here, this point. Okay, on receiving this player function data attribute, see this player function data, it will call this player function, which will just write in a minute. Okay, over somewhere over here we'll write this function. So okay, let's just write that function. Let's just create that function, and we'll create it in a arrow function manner. So say player function and arrow, and this is the function that will be called. And since you have passed this player data, so you need to have this player data over here as well, right? So you are passing the data, you are receiving the data here. Okay, now this function will be called, and something inside this function will happen. We'll write this in a minute. So before that, let's just understand the flow once again. We have used props inside our child component. We are calling the function along with the new player data. Okay, this is the new player data where we have already already learned this thing. So this new player data will be sent, and it will be passed over here, and it will receive this data. So inside this we'll do the whatever function is required for changing the player data player name. We'll do this thing over here. Okay, so next let's just cut this list, cut this array, and bring it over here above the function, and let's just rename it to default players. Okay, default players. And now see, what we are trying to achieve here is that this is a default players list, and this list will already be there, and a new player name and a new player score will be added to this list, right? So this player will be the initial value for the whole application. So for that, what we can do is we will just change the state, right? So let's just import useState hook, right? Let's just import useState hook, React. Okay, we are importing React from the React library, and along with it we are importing the useState hook. Okay, so this useState hook, what it will do is it will initially it will store the default player list array as its value, and whenever some changes occur, okay, it will record the changes, and for that we are using this useState. So here we'll write a variable and a function state player. Okay, this state player, this function will be used to change that over the entire list will change. Okay, this function. So when this function will be called, the player list will be updated, and so we can have this set player, we can call this set player function inside this player function, right? On calling this function, this set player function will be activated, right? But before that, we can have this, we can have an updated player variable, and let's just store this array here. So which array will store? As an array, which elements will store? Will store the player data, which is the new player data. See this one that we have received just now, along with the older list that you have already, and you have to copy the entire all the objects that you already have, right? So for that we put 3 dots, and where do we have that list? We have that inside this player variable. So let's just write player. So don't worry, I'll be explaining the flow once again after writing the code. Okay, so now we have this updated player, and it says updated player is assigned a value but never used. So what we'll do is we'll use this updated player and put it inside the set player. Okay, now what it does is that this set player, it updates the list, and whenever it is being called, it updates the list, right? So this part is done. Now player form, it's done. Now we have this players.js list, right? So what we can do in this part is that we can use the map function. Okay, instead of writing this over and over again, what we can do is we can just what we can do is we can use the map function with props. It's a props dot player info dot map function, and this map function will have, inside this map function we create an arrow function. Let's say new player and an arrow, and inside it the function. And what it will do, it will loop around. Just cut this part once and enter it. So it will loop around, and okay, and now we can just cut this part. This entire part we can cut, and what it essentially is doing, it's just removing maintaining this code by looping it round and round, because if we have this list and if we don't loop, we'll never know how many times we'll have to display our code, right? Display our new data, right, along with the existing data. So, and you can replace this part, by this new player variable, new player. So this one is being replaced here, and similarly here. Okay, now you don't have to write the entire thing. So okay, all right, yeah. And I don't think this semicolon is required, but we have to have this braces over here, I guess. Yeah, so let's just cut this inside and put this inside the braces. Fine. Now one more thing is left, and this is in the subcomponent. We don't have to use this use state part. We can comment it out. Also we can comment this part. Okay, and we can also, for this example, we can just comment this part also, reset score part, and just check on how, if whether our list is prepared or not. Okay, just props.pscore, and let's just check the output. Okay, this is the older list with the default players John, David and Peter. So let me explain with the code. We have this default players list which will be displayed as default, see. And if we add a new player and a new score, and if we hit this button, what it essentially does is it prepares this list. The old data along with a new data will be passed on to this updated player variable, and this set player will update the state. Okay, this is this is why this use state is used, right? So we have learned about states, so how states are maintained, right, in React. So let's just check this example. Let's say I give a player named Marty and his score as 99, and if you hit this, okay, this is not working. Fine. Why? Let's just check. Let's just save all the pages and let's just try it again. Marty 89. Okay, we have this, right? So some saving issues were there, so I think one of the component was not saved, that's why it was not working. So let's just check it once again. That's a Nick and 97. So add new player. Look, we have this new player Nick, then the other were as it is, right? It is added to this new list. And if we have another player, let's say Richard, and his score, let's say 75, so Richard is on the list, and his score and all the other players are also intact. And if you refresh, it's gone, right? So that way we can say that we can render the values inside a web browser. And so let me quickly just explain you once more the flow of the program, right? So as a child component, this player.form, from here you are putting your values, putting your input, and this input is passed as the player data to this function using props. Okay, this function is being called over here in the app.js, which is a parent component. This player function is called, right, using this attribute name player function data, which is used in the player form.js for props to call it. Okay, so this function is called, and this function have this this set player method, and this set player method is updating the player by considering this. See, the updated player variable consists of this items in the array having the already formed list of objects and a new value, right, that you have passed. So it updates the player. And in player.js, what we have done is we have stopped listing it by 0, 1 to index. Rather, we have used this map method, and we have looped over and over again till the list have its values, right? And the subcomponents part, we have just commented whichever things we didn't want to show, right? So that way it is working. And I hope you've understood this video. If you have any issues in understanding this particular video, you can comment it out and ask me for greater explanation. Okay, thank you guys for watching this video, and we'll see you in our next video. Thank you.